Welcome to PLZ Soccer Show. I'm Peter Martin. Alan Ruff is alongside me. Only one topic on the conversation right at the top of this show, and it has to be Graham Murty sacked by Rangers. Well, was it the right decision? It's one that we all literally could see coming after that debacle against Celtic at the weekend.
Yeah, I didn't like the phrasing of it, sack. You know.
Why? What do you not like about sacked? He's sacked.
Yeah, I know, but I think it could have been handled a bit better.
Well, let go. They've had a shake of hands.
Relieved of his job. Yep. Sounds a bit better for what the guy's done for the club.
Sacked.
I think you could tell on Friday before the game that his body language had all a bit lost everything that he had 5 or 6 weeks ago. Basically because obviously things that were happening behind the scenes. And we've already heard Brendan Rodgers throwing his tuppence worth in as a manager, so you have to respect the pressure you're under as a manager of a top club like that, but I don't think he's had absolute full backing.
Yeah, well, Brendan Rodgers says that Rangers have treated him like garbage, and I think many of us have the feeling that he was thrown under a bus on a couple of occasions, certainly prior to Old Firm games, the semi-final. Suddenly a statement from the Rangers chairman Dave King, basically saying that, you know, they're looking for another man. They weren't looking for him, so that derailed them ahead of the semi-final where they were battered, and then over and above that, ahead of it, somehow a Steven Gerrard story gets out. And again, the cynic in me is looking at that and thinking, what about the timing of that ahead of such a huge game where Rangers wanted to go into that game and come out with maybe a modicum of integrity intact in the performance. What they got was a 5-0 hammering, and it could have been 8, Ruffy.
Yeah, it certainly could have. Right from the very, very start, you could see that Celtic were really up for this and wanting to win it in front of their home fans, and also with the Rangers fans there as well. They wanted to really rub it in their noses. And right for the start, you could tell the pace of the players, the Celtic players. They were so faster, sharper than the Rangers players, and it was there for everybody to see. I mean, I know in the other couple of games we were talking about Brendan Rodgers had outsmarted Graham Murty with his tactical decisions and the formation and the team. For me, that weekend was all about players. It was comparing players against players, and unfortunately for Rangers, they are miles ahead Celtic on the park, and I don't know how long it will take for them to get back to where they were.
Yeah, okay. And amazingly, and I'm not at this moment giving myself a pat in the head, Ruffy, amazingly, 3 months ago, some people were talking about Graham Murty and the wonderful job he was doing, and of course that Rangers could actually catch Celtic in the title race and could go on to win the title after 6 wins in a row, all of them against inferior opposition. I mean, considerably inferior opposition. But I never thought Graham Murty, even with his interim management position, he's had 18 wins, including the interim stuff, 18 wins, 9 defeats, 2 draws. I never thought he was the man for the job because the job's too big for him. You cannot give it to a development coach. And now we're in a similar situation where they're now looking to give a man who hasn't had a job, hasn't had the experience. I think the Rangers job is a job where you show some kind of tactical nous, some kind of understanding of a job, or, at the top level in management. I don't know. I mean, people will say, oh, look at Neil Lennon going into the job, but Neil Lennon was playing for Celtic right up until that point. He knew about the pressures of it. He understood the club. He was in the club. Graham Murty was brought in from the under-20s. There's always an argument for someone who excels, who goes against the grain. But I think Rangers is such a top job. You need to be at the top of your game. Even Walter Smith gave Ali McCoist some kind of grounding, a learning curve in the job.
Yeah, but it just shows you, after you saying all that, it just shows you how near Rangers were for another disastrous appointment. Because in that run that Graham Murty had, if he'd thrown a Celtic win into that, Rangers would have gave him the job. I honestly think so. So that would have been another disaster in the light of what has happened since then, because that's the way they were operating. But yeah, you're right. The Steven Gerrard one, yeah, you're getting a name. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, you've got contacts and maybe players that he can attract to the club. But as you keep saying, players cost money. And if you look at the money that Celtic have got on the park, player value, and sitting on the bench, I mean, Rangers can't get anywhere near them.
Yeah, I mean, listen, what's coming up is the interesting part of this, because if Derek McInnes couldn't get a definitive figure on what budget he had, I'm wondering at what point now the board suddenly have come up with a set of figures to give Steven Gerrard to convince him to take this job. I'll be gobsmacked if he takes it. If he takes it, fair play to him, because I think it'll be a great PR appointment first and foremost. I'm not going to make a judgment on what he's like as a coach, because I think the Rangers board need to come up with big money. I'm not so sure they have it. I know Dave King's going to have to, through a subsidiary company, make this share offer to everyone. He's bound by a court to make that share offer to the shareholders, which they reckon could cost around 11 million. We've already got this situation. Again, we're not making up the figures. This is facts from the accounts. 18 million there with soft loans. Directors will want that money back at some point. Some might not want it back, and fair play to them if they've got a couple of million to burn, Ruffy. I just wonder where the money's coming from to give Steven Gerrard a sufficient kitty, because we've already established if Steven Gerrard comes in and looks at that Rangers squad right now, he won't get too many on that right hand that he'll be picking to stay.
No, and that'll be a problem for Rangers, because obviously in the league that he's dealing with, and although he's not part of signing players, but he's mingling with players that are 15 million, 20 million, 30 million, 40 million players, and now Rangers are going to try and attract him, and the first thing he's going to say, what's my budget? And you're saying it in your finger, he'd say it was even 10 million that they gave him, and we go, well, I only buy players at 10 million. Yeah. You want me to buy a whole team for 10 million?
No, but let's be realistic about it. If Steven Gerrard takes his first job, he's going to be well aware of the fact that he's going to have to duck and dive in the transfer market. He may well be able to attract loan signings from Liverpool when Jurgen Klopp does him a favour. Although I did suggest earlier on in the show, when we were looking at the morning headlines at 12:30, that maybe Željko Buvac leaving Liverpool as assistant might give Steven Gerrard some food for thought. I'm just putting 2 and 2 together, making 5. But with Jurgen Klopp with no assistant, would you look and say, okay, come on, cut your teeth here at Liverpool?
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously a possibility, at the right time for Rangers. But these things happen in the game. Everybody keeps talking about him being a future Liverpool manager. Obviously, you would have to work up the ranks to get there, and certainly being Klopp's assistant would set him on the right way, the right path. But if you listen to all the people who are giving him advice, every one of them say, make sure you make the right move, because the right move could be a backward step for you. Yeah,
okay. It is the main topic of conversation. You can give us your view on Facebook Live, Twitter Live at the moment, and YouTube as well. John Thompson says there was Cest. He's quite abusive as well, John. But get real, John. Everybody's talking about it. You might want to troll another site where you can throw abuse at other people. This is really a football channel, maybe not for you. Jimmy says they wouldn't go for such a high-profile person like Gerrard without giving him a decent amount to spend. Well, if that's the case, Jimmy, I think that's great. I mean, I think Steven Gerrard has to be given some kind of definitive figure that he can build on and say, yep, if I've got 20 million, I can go and try and build a half-decent team to take on Celtic. If that's going to be enough, that's what's open to debate. It's not the fact that Rangers are going for him, fine. There's question marks over, is he going to be a good coach? He certainly needs money to be given half a chance to be a good coach at Rangers, and then we'll find out. Again, Alan Howitt says, football's a ruthless business. Murty was treated poorly, but he had to go. Alan, you're absolutely right. Did he have to be there in the first place is probably the big question, Ruffy.
Well, it just shows you where Rangers were, that he is there in the first place. We keep hearing about managers who would want to be part of the Rangers setup, but we never heard managers throwing their names into the hat, and that's why Rangers went for Graham Murty.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, let's not forget this is a Celtic side that won 7 titles in a row. The manager let the players go away for a little bit of warm weather training, and rightly so. I think he'll build up a bit of camaraderie. They're away. They might get a chance to relax as well, Ruffy, and you can see what he's trying to do with the old team spirit. Not that I think they need it.
No, but obviously just after winning a game like that and winning the league, to go away for 2 or 3 days and just let your hair down and have the guys can relax, because there is a lot of tension involved in these high-profile games, and obviously I think if you ask any team, not just Celtic, if the owner comes in and says, look, you're going away for 3 or 4 days, the players really go for it. And it's a wee while before the cup final, so they've got enough time to get back into shape.
Yep, absolutely. And it was an emphatic win. It's the first time we've had a chance to talk about it. Obviously, we apologise not being able to bring you the show yesterday. But after the PFA Awards, where we had a right good skullful, Ruffy, I have to tell you, we enjoyed ourselves after I'd finished the hosting. We had a few sherbets. Ruffy said hello to me and then mingled among the crowd because we don't really hang about together at events. We kind of go our own separate ways. And then after that, of course, we had to kick in straight away to the Glasgow Cup final, the under-17s battling against each other. Just before we talk about some of the other games coming up this week, Ruffy, and you know what else is on offer in Scottish football, I've got to mention Jim Duffy being sacked at Morton. I mean, honestly, the world's gone mad. If we're talking about expectation and reality, you know, am I being brutal to Morton to say, what are you hoping for? You know, I mean, I've heard there's a sniff that Lee McCulloch could be coming in for this job. But Jim Duffy, sacking Jim Duffy from where they were and, you know, what he did for that club, I'm gobsmacked.
Yeah, but the other thing as well, I just can't get my head around it. If the new owner is now saying that I promised my dad that I'll get Morton back up into the Premier League, Jim Duffy's the man that will take you there if you give him the right resources and the right money to go, you know, and buy the right person. He's been there, he's done it, you know, so I don't get, obviously, the chat along the lines was, well, we don't think you're the man that can take us there, particularly with what he's done already. They've been round about the top 4 for the last 3 or 4 years, and for me, it's all about finance to get back up there.
Yeah, Franny says, I feel for Murty. The guy tried his best in difficult circumstances. They threw him under the bus because they couldn't afford anyone else after paying the last gaffer off. I don't think he was too far away from the truth there on that one, Franny. Of course, John's come back and he's maybe toned down the abuse. Too many people have written Steven Gerrard off. Too many people have written Steven Gerrard off before he's even accepted the job. It's a big gamble. What if it works out? What will people say then? Well, John, people will say, well done Rangers and well done Steven Gerrard. Nobody's got to be in their bonnet about, you know, Steven Gerrard as, you know, a high profile appointment, Ruffy. The point here that everybody is talking about consistently is, have Rangers got the money to give a young manager coming in, an inexperienced manager, have they got the money to give him to get half decent players in? Because this bunch are not half decent.
No, and that's why I'm saying I think the supporters are waiting in some kind of statement from the club now. It's turned right on its head again. You know, before all the managers came in, everybody was talking about the board and what they were going to do, and this new board came in and promised the supporters enough money to start challenging Celtic. It's evident that money hasn't been used wisely, if there was a large amount there, but we all know now that even 20, 30 million isn't going to close the gap, you know, because players obviously cost a lot more now, the wages they're on are bigger, so when you're throwing about 30 million, you're talking about his wages and how much it's costing you. So again, you know, nobody has a complaint with Steven Gerrard. We know what he was as a footballer, but he's an untried guy, you know. Okay, he can fall back on other experienced people and that, but if we listen to the experienced managers, you know, Graham Souness and Brendan Rodgers and people like that, saying you really have to be very, very streetwise and have a knowledge of managing a top team. And Rangers are a top club, so they're taking a gamble because, you know, there's more to what just happens on the park. There's everything that goes on off the park as well you've got to deal with. Yeah,
a lot of people are saying, oh, every manager's a gamble. Yeah, they are a gamble, but not when you've got one arm tied behind your back without any money. There's people throwing up comparisons with Graham Souness. Graham Souness came in from Sampdoria, he was a top player. He continued to be a player for Rangers, but he had a king's ransom to back up the type of player he wanted to bring, and Woods and Butcher came in and a host of other players, some of them mediocre, but they were helped by the absolute top draw that he was able to get from England. I tell you, get Gerrard in, he's the man, he'll attract some half-decent players, says Paul. Paul, you're absolutely right, he probably would, but has he got the money to get them in there? Elsewhere, what a game at Easter Road, Ruffy. I said at the start of the season, I thought Hibs were going to finish top 3. You looked at me as if I was a complete space cadet, and suddenly I think Hibs will finish top 3. I'm not so sure I'm not so sure about whether they'll finish second, because I think Aberdeen, this game in the weekend is going to be an absolute humdinger.
Yeah, I think Aberdeen have got the better of the 3 games that are left. Obviously 2 at home, 1 away. Hibs have got a tough one. Obviously Aberdeen, they've got Rangers at home, but I would think they would like to be in the position that they don't have to go and win that one. But I think there's still a bit of to and froing to go along. We'll be going to be seeing whether Rangers can pick themselves up and the evidence for the weekend there. But they've got a big one against Kilmarnock at the weekend. So I think it's still going to be nip and tuck all the way.
Yeah, I've got to read this one out. It's Franny Bucky Thistle. You deserve a mention on this one, Franny, just for obviously you're at the wind-up. Can't believe Morton letting Jim Duffy go. Maybe they're going to try and nip in and get Gerrard from under Rangers' nose. Don't think that's going to happen, but well worth it. Laura says every manager has to start somewhere. We agree. I'd rather have a fresh young manager with new ideas, and I believe Gerrard would offer that. Regardless if it's him, any manager will need money to improve the team. I think that there are players at the club that he could help improve. The problem is the board, and we need to get that sorted. Laura, you're 100% on the mark. I think that's where the problem lies. Boardroom level, empty promises, haven't been able to back them up, and then over and above that now you have all these little factions, all with investment in the club, all feel they're worthy of a major say on the way Rangers move ahead, but unfortunately right now they're going from one disaster to the other. The other aspect of this, we talked about Hibs' great win over Kilmarnock. Aberdeen had a great win over Hearts 2-0. At the bottom end, Ruffy, your old team, Partick Thistle. What a game coming up at the weekend. This is where I think you'll be biting through your fingers, never mind your nails. Yeah,
it was a lifeline on Saturday against St Johnstone. A penalty, 2 minutes to go. Connor Salmon comes up, shows a lot of composure to stick it away. But I think the Thistle boys know that Friday night is the big one. 3 points there, obviously, with the games coming up at the weekend. I think Dundee do play Hamilton, so 3 points. And if one of them were to, I don't know whether a draw would be beneficial or not, but forgetting about that game, it needs to be 3 points at Firhill.
Okay, last point, Champions League. It's always good. We get a chance to sit down and watch it. You don't, because you refuse to pay the money for BT Sport. Get your finger out. You're such a tight back end. I don't want to say the word I was going to say, but nevertheless, get some money out there and watch the Champions League. Have you been chapping doors of mates of yours that have BT Sports so that you can actually sit and watch it for nothing?
No, not at all. I'm quite happy to see the highlights and the edited editions later on in the night.
On Wednesday.
The Wednesday. But this is 2 big, massive games coming up. I'm as you know, I'm behind Bayern in this one, and it's not 100% that they're going to do it. But
they're in the Bernabeu. They're 2-1 down. They're going out, Ruffy.
Yeah, well, it looks like that one. But there's been strange results. There've been strange results in this Champions League, so I'm hoping there's another strange one tonight. Yeah,
okay then. Right now, Real Madrid against Liverpool in the final. Because tomorrow night, it's Roma against Liverpool. I want Liverpool to win. It's 5-2 up. Surely they can't throw it away, Ruffy.
I wouldn't hope so, but Peter, I've been warning you. This goalkeeper and the centre-half, Leuven, are not, to me, the kind of goalkeeper and centre-half I would want getting into these games. I hope I'm wrong. I don't know if you remember in the last game, he only threw one in the first 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Right ball went right through his hands and hit the bar. He'll either be a hit or he'll be a miss, but I think Liverpool will be organised enough to see out this game. If you're scoring 5 goals in the first leg, there's no way you can lose this, surely.
Okay, give us your thoughts at PLZ Soccer on Twitter, facebook.com/PLZ Soccer. If you want to get all the latest news, all you have to do is get on there and look for the PLZ Soccer app in Google Play and the App Store. Download it. You'll get all the latest news from north and south of the border, right across Europe, and global football as well. There are competitions coming up. There's unique video content as well. So if you get a chance, you can get all the latest news on a daily basis, www.plzsoccer.com, and get the app as well. Join us on tomorrow's programme. Barry Ferguson will be with us to discuss all the events of the day. Undoubtedly, the Rangers saga will go on and on. We think Liverpool, Real Madrid in the final. Ruffy picked a second team after his Paris Saint-Germain team, his first choice, remember them? Out. And now he's picked Bayern Munich. They're going out as well. It's going to be Liverpool against Real Madrid in the Champions League final. Come on. Thanks for joining us.